I don't know why I thought this, but I thought it was like party balloons tied to a bag of poop and they were just like sending it. But the balloon itself is holding like this gigantic mass and just delivering it slowly for it to fall. And it's even caused like damage to Korean like property and life. And so they must just really hate Korea. I like that's I think that's what you would do. If you hate your neighbor, you would send poop. Like that, I think that's a very human thing to do.
Today, I'm wrapping up my trip to South Korea. Like any curious traveler, I had to visit the DMZ. And the very next day, I ran into protests. There was never a dull moment of this trip. This is the season finale of Broad Abroad Season 2. 너만 보면 점점점. Grace, did you go to the DMZ?
I did. This is really exciting because this is actually a thing I've done.
Uh-huh.
And like I said in like maybe our first episode, when I was in Korea, it was 2011, so it was a long time ago. But I have some pretty strong memories of the border and the little tour that we took. And the thing I remember about it is like it was crazy to be in the place of such tension, like such geopolitical tension. But at the same time, it's this weird thing because on one hand, there's soldiers and you can like see North Korea right there. You can see the soldiers and you're like, oh my God, they're right there. And on the other hand, you're like, it feels so like inconsequential at the same time because it's like we're on a tour and they have people coming in and out all the time, all day, every day. So on one hand, it's very high stakes. And on the other hand, it's like just very, normal kind of.
I get what you're saying. It felt kind of surreal. Like
yeah.
You go to the Dora Observatory, which is where you have panoramic views of North Korea. You have this weird sense like sipping a latte looking at North
That's
Korea.
so bizarre.
So we booked it through VIP Travel, and our tour guide was absolutely adorable. His name was Alex.
Alex Mars. Alex Mars. Alex Mars. Alex Mars. Thank you so much. So I just brainwash you like him, okay? You are now my smile. So whenever I call smiles, just you have to pay attention to me, okay, everyone?
You do this like hour and a half drive to the DMZ where he runs you through the whole history, like what I told you last episode. He talks about the Chosun Dynasty, the Cold War.
A lot of people said the Korean War was almost World War III because a lot of countries joined the Korean War. Finally, 27th of July, 1953, the Armistice Agreement was signed.
I think the most fascinating part about the DMZ tour was by far going inside one of the tunnels.
Yeah, I don't think I did that on my tour.
The infiltration tunnel is very deep and it's very small. It's a North Korean size. So when we go inside to the tunnel, we have to bend our body like this and we will walk for 12 minutes round trip. If this is the infiltration tunnel, this is the interception tunnel. South Korea made this tunnel to find this infiltration tunnel. The interception tunnel is very steep, 11 degrees. So going down is not a problem, but when you climb up again, you will sweat a little bit. And Smash, today you can eat whatever you want because I'm sure that you will lose 2 kilograms after you finish the infiltration tunnel. I worked as a tour guide more than 2 years and I lose 10 kilograms.
South Korea discovered that.
South Korea did.
Okay.
Because a North Korean who was working in the tunnel popped up and ran across the border and was like,
God.
Hey, by the way. And initially North Korea was like, oh, we were mining for coal. But there's no coal in this part of the world.
Okay.
North Korea built these secret tunnels not for escape, but to invade. They were dug wide enough for 30,000 troops per hour to move through.
Seoul is only like 36 miles or something away. That must violate the like ceasefire.
Yes. South Korea wasn't too happy about it. And it's actually unknown how many tunnels there are.
Oh, no.
But this is the one that got the closest.
Holy shit.
And before you get to that point, they have like a park. And that's where you can see this bridge. So at the end of the Korean War, we exchanged prisoners of war. And the only way that North Korea let the South Koreans back in is they had to pledge their allegiance to North Korea and wear a North Korean uniform.
Oh, my God.
And as soon as they crossed this bridge, they all tore off the North Korean uniform, set it on fire, and had this huge celebration.
Wow, crazy.
And so you get to see that bridge, and there's all these beautiful, colorful ribbons. And it's also very sad. There's like these panels that show like beautiful North Korean like mountains and things that South Korea, misses and wants to remember.
Well, okay, there's memories I have from my trip that I wonder if you did. There was one point where there were like these rooms with tables that I think were sort of like, discussion rooms or whatever in case their conversations needed to be had between the two sides. Did you see anything like that?
And were the buildings blue?
Yes.
That's the JSA, or Joint Security Area. It's been closed to tourists since 2023 when an American soldier unexpectedly ran across to the North Korean side on a tour.
One thing I remember when I was there was, like I said, we had an American soldier as our tour guide, and he took us up on this like short little hike thing to this kind of lookout point where we could see this really tall, or maybe a few of them, these tall buildings in North Korea. And he told us about how, I think on the South Korean side, they had built, I don't know if it was a skyscraper or a business or a overlook or a residential building or something, and it was a certain height. And then in the North Korean side, quickly after, they built another building that was a little bit taller or the same height, and then it became this kind of like, competition, or like, North Korea felt like it needed to keep up in some weird way. What they realized after a while was that the buildings were empty. There weren't actually any floors in the buildings there, because there was like a overhead light on the top floor, and the light would like, filter down, and then on the lower floors it was a lot darker than the upper floors, because they realized, there's only one light in this whole building. Like there's
So it's an empty building.
rooms, it's totally empty. It's just like a facade so they can like have the appearance of, success or wealth or whatever. All that to say, I've heard a little bit about, in different ways, this like kind of back and forth tit for tat thing, like.
And things have turned almost childish between them.
Yeah.
So at the Dora Observatory, Alex was like, by the way, you might hear some K-pop music.
Oh.
They were blasting K-pop into
Really?
North Korea. Yeah, there was a giant speaker at the DMZ, and they're just blasting
Why is
K-pop.
that?
South Korea effectively is trying to, if you put it in a bad way, taunt, and in a good way, like correctly propagandize the North Koreans and tell them to like come over and like, yo, like you gotta escape and there's freedom on the side. If you're being brainwashed, know that there's better things on the other side. North Korea, obviously, to maintain its dictatorship and its communist regime, they want to keep the brainwashing, and also like in their shoes, not that I agree with it, but if I were them, they are obviously bothered by that. They are re-taunting by sending, poop balloons, literally, and trash balloons to the other side. Yeah, you could argue like one started the other, you are disturbing us, whatever. But I do think there's a slight difference of like popping up K-pop and sending food and sending money versus sending poop. And it kind of speaks, I think, very symbolically to what each side stands for. Again, I think if I was in North Korea's shoes, I would absolutely send like poop balloons to the other side. I think it's like a very logical, even funny, treacherous thing to do. You get a lot of these like alerts, like way more than the United States. When you're there, your phone gets these like bad air quality, like poop balloon in the air. Like they're very surveillancing, and it's very accessible because so many people are in Seoul. And I think that's also a very interesting part of Korea where someone's always watching and it's very tech enabled. And so I just thought it was funny when I was there. Every other day they would be like, "Oh, like poop balloon in the air," and I kind of wanted to see it, but I was too far from the border for it to be seen. It's a nuisance, and I don't think anyone wants to be part of it.
I just think it's so funny how things could come to this point, because it's not just like 4 trash balloons. It's like hundreds of trash balloons.
Hundreds.
And you have to think of how heavy a bag of shit is. These are massive balloons.
Huge. Yeah. When I first heard about them, I thought it was, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought it was like party balloons tied to a bag of poop and they were just like sending it. But the balloon itself is holding like this gigantic mass and just delivering it slowly for it to fall. And it's even caused like damage to Korean like property and life. And so I think they must just really hate Korea. I think that's what you would do. If you hate your neighbor, you would send poop like that. I think that's a very human thing to do.
It's time for Katie's travel tips. It's time for Katie's travel tips. What to eat and where to stay. How to save, let's fly away. History lessons and fun tidbits. It's Katie's travel tips.
So you want to check out the DMZ. Here are some tips. This is a strictly tour guide only experience. You cannot rent a car and go there on your own. I went with VIP Travel and they were absolutely awesome. Remember to bring your passport. Only take photos where you're allowed. There are plenty of bathrooms and snacks along the way, so don't stress on that. There are no tours on Mondays and the tour can be canceled up until the very last minute for any reason. Fun fact, at the DMZ you can buy North Korean currency. But if you ask how they get it, they will not tell you.
I wonder what people think today about whether reunifying feels like a possibility, like, or if it's just too far gone at this point. Like, there's just too much, it would be too difficult.
What do you think it would take for unification to happen? Or do you think it will ever happen?
I used to believe that it would happen as a kid. I don't know why. I don't think it will happen as an adult. I think Kim Jong-un, from his point of view, why do it? He has everything he wants. He can do whatever he wants. He owns his regime, if you want to call it that. And there's not necessarily, and maybe if we reunify, he has to share his power or whatever and sacrifice some of his ideals. And I don't know why he would do that. He just doesn't have to. So I don't see him doing that anytime soon. None of his father or grandfather, none of them wanted to. I'm sure he will instill the same kind of ideals and ideas to his successor. Is that the right word? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't see it happening.
North Korea has no incentive to reunify.
Really?
I mean, they would lose all their power. The people at the very, very top need to keep things how they are to maintain their power. And also, many people are extremely brainwashed there. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think the chance of that happening is slim, unfortunately.
Slim. Right as you were planning your trip, and then shortly after you left also, there was all this drama happening. What's the deal with the president and what's going on now, and what did you witness while you were there?
So many protests. It was a wild time to be there. Essentially, their president, who's I think no longer the president, President Yoon, declared martial law.
Why?
What exactly is happening with the president of Korea who may not be the president anymore?
A quick disclaimer, this podcast is for entertainment purposes. The views expressed by my guests are entirely their own. Interviews are edited down for time. Korean politics, like American politics, are complicated, emotional, and dramatic. During my trip, I happened to run into a pro-Yoon protest, but there were demonstrations on all sides.
Korea has a very fascinating history. And I might get some details wrong, but overall, I would say this is as objective as I can be. Korea used to be a monarchy until theoretically the Japanese imperialism in the early 1900s and in a state of chaos until the end of World War II and even obviously post the Korean War. And then because of, I'll do a weird nationalistic taste, because of the average Korean being super smart, super hard working, and have always been attacked by China, Japan, and all these countries on the side, imperialism, Russia and America split, all these things, Koreans hold this will to really try hard and work hard. And so really quickly in the late 1900s, Korea spiked up in GDP and output. They have as you guys know, K-pop and all these things, but they also have a lot of companies like Samsung and all these things that are global levels of success. There are two primary presidential figures. The first one being President Lee Seung-man, or President Ri, let's call it. He was, I think, an Ivy League or Harvard-educated man or something that the Americans picked out to be president. And there's President Park Chung-hee, who I think is the third president, who many, now I'm going to start using political jargon, again, apologies in advance, but a lot of progressives, or the liberal equivalents of Korea, tend to see as a dictator. But the conservatives think that he is the person that led the country to success, because in a time of chaos, you need some level of control. There are a lot of things that are questionable that he's done. He's definitely ordered people to kill people and all things and trap people, put them in jail or whatever. But the conservative argument is that given the current circumstances of that time, someone needed to take control and push the conglomerates to make the country go up again. Following President Park, there was a guy named President Jun. A lot of people think he's a dictator also, but there's also people that are split on him that believe that he also pushed this country to a degree where it made it better. People actually in Korea are still split in a lot of these things. Given that history, Koreans have an allergic reaction to martial law and to people taking control of the state because they believe that anything smelling of a dictator is bad and democracy is the greatest thing on planet Earth. Granted, as you can tell, true democracy never really exists in any country, at least in my opinion. And so you kind of need to choose your the better of both evils. And I think the conservative side of Korea argues that you need some level of strong leadership and pro-American, pro-capitalistic ideals for the country to move forward. And the other side tends to lean a little bit more left, and they think that all these things are bad. We need to be peaceful. We need to be more democratic. And in a weird way, they tend to be more pro-North Korea, I'll be careful here and not say socialism, but socialism-esque approaches to taking care of the country. And when I say pro-North Korea, I don't mean they support Kim Jong-un. They want to support North Korea for sending them money or whatever. And the conservative side tends to be, we need to stop that support and lean on the Americans and the Japanese more because that's more of the Western side of the world. In the past 4 or 5 presidents, and I'm going to mix some things up, there's been a lot of weird cases. And all Korean presidents have ended up in some terrible fate. Out of the 13, there's a Korean joke that says the most dangerous job in Korea is actually the presidency. Something 2 or 3 of them have been killed or shot during the presidency. One had a suicide. 4 or 5 of them, maybe even 6 of them, went to jail. And even in the past 3 or 4, one of them being President Park's daughter has been impeached. President No jumped off a cliff. President Lee went to jail. President Moon is under investigation, and President Yoon was in jail until recently and came back out. Most recently, President Moon, who is a Democratic or left-leaning president, ran on a campaign that was about bringing money back to the people and all these things, and it only led to, this is not a contested fact, and everyone agrees, property prices went up, minimum wage also went up, and a lot of inflationary things occurred. And so based on that, and also a rise in what I would like to call a wrong version of feminism in Korea, where extremists say they want to kill men and all these things, a lot of certain demographics started leaning right again, as you see pendulum swing. I think you saw it in Korea. President Yoon won the presidency and he got elected into office. But since then, and now becomes my biased takes, the progressive side limited a lot of what this president wanted to do. And you could call it gridlock, but there's been some signs that say it's been very actively limited. And there's also been a witch hunt, which a lot of people say it's justified, but a witch hunt against his wife, who, first of all, I hope, again, I'm not being offensive, but she is very plastic surgery up. So people make comments that she used to work for what Koreans call room salons, and she was part of some bad nightlife stuff that he picked up on or whatever. Her mom is actually a felon, and she did the scam, and she went to jail or something. And the wife having too much power over the presidency instead of him. And then on the flip side, obviously the conservatives are arguing what's wrong with a man that's getting advice from the wife, and she's a strong character. All these things are happening. I won't say anything snarky, but I think if the flip happened, I would argue the other side might be oh, it's so great that a wife is also taking charge. But anyways, I think it's double standards all across the board. Mm-hmm. All these things happened, and then with these things accumulating, and President Yoon, on his perspective, whether he's lying or whatever, he believed that there's been an active effort for the left to overthrow him and the Conservative Party anyways, and they're being too pro-North Korea. And there's been plenty of speculations, the same way that the left proclaims that the right is dictatorship. The right proclaims that the left has been infiltrated by North Korea, and they're either paid off or actually secretly on the North Korean side to bring the country to North Korea, or they actually have allegiances to Kim Jong-un. At some point, President Yoon decided he was going to declare emergency martial law to overthrow these Democrats or people embedded into the Korean government that he believes is actually not for the best interest of Korea. To really summarize, Koreans have an itch or an ick against dictatorship, and they fear this like feeling of being oppressed and all these things, and they feel like that leads to bad. The conservative side of Korea feels like people do that to oppress like capitalistic and money progress, and they feel like these dictators at the left are framing as dictators actually made the country go forward. And so the state of national emergency, obviously the majority was like, holy crap, this can't even happen. And even conservatives were like, this is not really a thing. And so they paused and then overthrew him basically through the impeachment process. On top of the impeachment process, they put this man in jail for like betraying the country, some legal document. And I think that really sparked, to bring a full back circle, the woman that you saw is obviously on his side and in saying that she's probably also an extremist, and saying she probably thinks that he did nothing wrong. This is an effort that needs to be had to save the country, and the left progressives are doing whatever it takes to put any conservative president in jail, impeached, that the left side can rule indefinitely. And there's been signs, or I guess proof of that being kind of a thing. And so right now, Korea's in a state of chaos, where not as much as chaos as when you were there, but there's a growing side of folks that were previously probably a little bit scared to say their opinion, because everyone's like, if you support him, you're a dictator, or you're whatever. But now it's kind of like, oh, you're going to put another one of us in jail? Like, when are we going to have true democracy? And then the other side saying, do you want another dictatorship? We need reform.
Many of the recent presidents have either gone to jail or been murdered.
Really?
And many of them were found out to be taking bribes.
Wow.
And people feel that he abused his power by declaring martial law.
Really? Okay.
Other people are saying that it's necessary for Korea to have a strong leader who makes strong decisions.
We're in a very kind of contentious area where there's North Korea, China, and Russia, and all these surrounding countries that are unstable. So we're very like not in geographically, not in an important place, but a very like kind of dangerous place. So for us to be something anti-America is kind of like basically impossible. So even though they're anti the conservatives, and the conservatives are very pro-America, they can't be completely anti-America, but they try to, basically say no to things that the conservatives are like rooting for.
The president declared martial law a few weeks before we came to visit you.
Mm-hmm.
Then they tried to arrest him, but they weren't able to arrest him. Now they're trying to arrest him again, but all the far-right conservatives are pro him. They don't think he should be arrested.
Because he's from the conservative side.
Okay.
Yeah, so the extreme conservative, maybe the equivalent of Tea Party, they love him. And there's a whole support like system for the president. But I think most people I talk to, which are mostly millennials, so we're younger, are like just absolutely embarrassed by our president. Like just really don't want to even say his name out loud.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of some others.
Guys, if you can't tell, I genuinely loved my time in Korea. It is such an awesome country, and I wish I would have stayed a little bit longer, but I know I'll be back one day. Since I visited in January and since I interviewed Bryan, a lot has changed. Most importantly, BTS is getting back together. So exciting. Also, officially, President Yoon is out and South Korea elected a new president. Good luck to him. I want to give a genuine thank you to everyone I interviewed who gave their time. And also thank you to Maria and her lovely mom for being generous hosts while I was in Korea. Also, thank you to you watching this, especially if you watched since episode 1. I put my heart and soul and so much research into these episodes, and I really hope you like them. And let me know if you have any suggestions of where to travel next. What did you like about this season? What did you not like about this season? Do you want me to touch more on politics, less on politics? Do you want more practical travel tips? Also, just so you know, I got so much awesome content from these interviews. More bonus content is coming soon in the coming weeks. I am trying to post on this YouTube every other week. Also very exciting, after the Korea bonus content, I went on a surprise side quest. My coworkers here at Gotham West booked me an international trip. I had no idea where I was going, and then they sent me on surprise challenges to see just how good of a traveler I am. And then after that, I went somewhere tropical. So yes, a lot of editing needs to be done. As always, travel curiously, be mindful, and be kind.
Hi, I'm Katie Yonner, host and creator of Broad Abroad. It takes a small army to produce this podcast and these videos. Elizabeth Henriquez is my producer. Emmy Chang is my assistant producer. Kyle Bosch is our head of video. Dale Watts is our head of marketing. Amanda Johnson is my supervising producer. Grace Heerman is my co-host. And my executive producer is Tommy West. Broad Abroad is a production of Gotham West Studios.